All righty, you're good.
Mandy, Manda Marshall is the AI support team manager for the ITS Enterprise Services AI Productivity Solutions Group at the University of Iowa. She is passionate about using technology to improve productivity and learning. She encourages the innovative use of technology to address issues while also emphasizing the importance of adhering to ethical standards in its application. Her research interests include how artificial intelligence influences human behavior, decision-making, and cognition. Manda also participates in higher education discussions about AI ethics, promoting responsible AI development, transparency, and fairness. Welcome, Manda.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here really quick. We'll get the presentation up here and I'll get all of my Zoom windows moved around like we're all used to doing here. So thanks everyone for joining me today. I'm going to talk to you about AI assistant tools. Mostly we'll kind of focus on Microsoft Copilot. We'll talk a little bit beyond Copilot at a different pilot that we are administering for an AI assistant tool today. And as mentioned, I'm happy to take questions during. If you want to unmute, if you would like to put that in the chat, any of those methods work for me, and I am happy to do so. Please also feel free to follow along as we go today. These tools are new and rapidly changing, so if you come later and watch the recording of this, just know that the information we provide today is up to date as of today, and since AI is a field that is rapidly changing and evolving, those tools can change, and also the way that we interact with them or think about them is evolving as well. So keep that in mind if you're watching this later. So the first thing we're going to do, if anybody is new to thinking about using an AI assistant tool such as Microsoft Copilot, I just want to talk a little bit about what that is. Copilot Enterprise here is an AI-powered assistant. It's currently available to all faculty, all staff, and all students here at the University of Iowa, and that has been available since about earlier this spring of this year. What it is, it's a tool that uses generative artificial intelligence to generate responses to prompts that you input. So what that means is there's a large language model, or LLM, that is powering this tool. And what it's going to do is it's going to look at the text that you input in your prompt, that text relationship to one another, to provide a probabilistic response that it believes satisfies the requirement of your prompt. Now, we will kind of reference that as I'm going through the demonstration today, and hopefully that will make a little bit more sense if you're new to thinking about using these tools. And just to be clear, the tool that I'm talking about first today, Microsoft Copilot Enterprise, is not Microsoft 365 Copilot. That's very similarly named. That particular tool does connect to your Office data. This tool that I'm talking about first does not connect to your data. We'll talk a little bit later about Copilot 365, but this tool is standalone. What that means, though, is your data is protected. So any prompt that you input into this tool, any response that is generated, are not used to train that large language model that's powering the tool. It's also not visible to anyone. So Microsoft doesn't get to see the prompts or responses that are generated. Also, there are no Microsoft administrators here at the University of Iowa that get to see that either. So this tool is appropriate for use with any data that's labeled university internal or university public as well. So here in just a second, I will model logging in case you're new to the tool, but simply you would just go to a browser, go to copilot.microsoft.com. Make sure when you're using this tool, whether it's on your own device, whether it's on a shared device, or even a mobile device, because there is an app for Android and Apple, that you log in with your university credentials. I just want to get you used to thinking about the visual cues that you see in relation to this tool, like the green shield that's on the screen here. Once you see that, wherever you're using Copilot Enterprise, you know that your data is protected and you are logged in. If you don't see that green shield, that means you're using the consumer version, which looks almost identical to the business version, or education version, I should say. And your data is not protected in that tool. Okay, so I'm going to put the URL for that in the chat here in case you'd like to follow along. And I am going to actually pull a browser window in here. And this is just copilot.microsoft.com. I'm using Microsoft Chrome for this. And this is the consumer version right here. So if you were to go ahead and input a prompt or do anything here or log in with a personal account, that data is not protected, and any of those prompts and responses are going to be shared with others or potentially show up in another person's prompt. So that's why we want to log in to get that data protection. So up here in the top right, there's a sign in button. And if you click that, make sure you sign in with a work or school account, and then that's going to take you to sign in. And I've already signed in before, so I'm going to use a training account here. It's going to take you to that Hawk ID and password that you need to enter. And of course, you'll have to authenticate with Duo, depending on where else you're logged in and when you've logged in last. And now that I am logged in, you'll notice it looks just the same as it did before, basically. Up here in the top right, though, I can see my credentials as well. I can see that green shield. And just as long as you get used to looking up there for that green shield, you know that you get the data protection. And that is super important when you are utilizing tools like this. In the middle here, you will see kind of this carousel that scrolls on its own. What that is it's simply giving you prompt suggestions. So ways to think about writing prompts, some different prompts you can input, and you can scroll through there manually and to look at the different things that are coming in here. So for instance, this one says, what are some promising ways to eradicate malaria? If that was something that was of interest to you, you can simply click on this tile. It would input that prompt for you and automatically generate a response. Now this carousel does change over time. So if yours looks different than mine, that's just because it just changes sometimes later in the day, or if I reload this tab, it will just keep giving me some new ideas. The other thing along those lines I do want to mention is that since these tools are rapidly changing, they might look different sometimes from day to day. So if Microsoft's model, when they roll out updates, is incremental. So that means that you might have an update that I haven't received yet, or I might have an update that you don't yet have. So if you're working with a colleague and you see something that's just a little bit different between your two screens, just note that that's just the way Microsoft does it, for better and worse. They do roll them out at different times. So that is to be expected. Now, of course, down here in the bottom, there is a prompt input area that says, ask me anything, and you can write custom prompts in that area. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that before we actually start inputting prompts in there, but we will spend some time back in that tool, but I just have a few slides first I'd like to go over before we do that. One of the things I want to talk about, of course, is prompt engineering, and that's how do you write a prompt? Now, this is a field that has emerged over the last few years. We could spend months just on the science of prompt engineering, and of course, we don't have that. So these are some general recommendations to think about when you're going to write a prompt in an AI assistant tool. The one thing is this is not a search engine, so you want to use complete sentences in your prompt instead of just using keywords. Remember that large language model is looking at the words that you choose in that sentence, the words' relationship to one another in that sentence to try and determine the context of what you're asking. So it is, you're going to get a more robust answer if you write a complete sentence. In general, the guidelines, first of all, are just be specific. Tell it exactly what you want it to do. So for example, I can say, write an email. I could say, generate a report, write a business case, give me feedback on my writing, help me learn about X. Those are just some very few examples to think about how you might start out your prompt by just being very specific. And then, of course, you need to give it some additional context. So give it some additional details that it should think about when it's writing that prompt to you. So if I were to say, write an email, I want to include some details about that email. So to my staff about a meeting coming up, include agenda items X, Y, and Z. Now, of course, it's going to write what you ask for, but it also knows what emails and agendas typically contain. So it's going to expand upon those as well. So it's taking the knowledge and experience you already have that you've put into your prompt, and it's going to amplify that by adding additional details in that response, which you'll see here in just a moment. Other than that, when you're writing those prompts, use simple and straightforward language. Talk to the AI assistant, Copilot, exactly like you would a human assistant or another colleague, right? You don't want to use really complex language. You don't want to use slang or jargon, because those can be interpreted differently in different contexts or even locations. you're going to get the best answer if you just simply talk in natural language. So if I were to say, hey, could you give me a report on this? I might not say hey to Copilot, but I would definitely say it with the same words. And that is going to give you the best response because that model is trained on natural language. So that's how it understands what you mean best. Lastly, and this is one I always forget about, is you can think about the format that you want it to output that generated response in. So I could say, can you provide this information in a table with these specific columns? I could say, give me a numbered or a bulleted list, or can you put it in a short paragraph or a long paragraph, whatever I want to do. Now, of course, if I'm asking it to write an email or even a business case, it knows what typical emails or the format of typical business cases are, and it will output that format right away for you in the format that you've asked for. Just know that you can change that. I'm not going to say it's perfect at giving you what you want, but it has been pretty good. As long as you're not too complex with that request. The last thing to remember is just as with a conversation with a human, you will have the opportunity and will most likely need to iterate on the output that it gives you. So if I were to say, write a business case on X and include these details, it will most likely do that, but it's probably not going to be exactly what I want or what I was thinking of. So I will need to go back and forth and have that conversation with the AI assistant to get it to be in the format that I want. If I were writing that from scratch anyway, I would most likely be going back and forth basically with myself doing it. Copilot can do that for you. I could say, this is great, but omit this paragraph and add this paragraph and add these details. And you can work back and forth with it, as you'll see here in just a moment. It's a different way of thinking about working with computers than we have up until now. We are used to giving the computer a command, it executes that command, and it does it exactly like I say. AI assistant tools are different. They're not human. They don't think like humans. However, we have to kind of think a little bit in terms of it being somewhat like a human in the way we interact with it. We are going to have a conversation about doing something and working with it to get what we want instead of just telling it and having it flawlessly execute that command, right? So have an open mind and a growth mindset when you are working with these tools. Now, before we jump in again, a couple of details I just want to point out, and I will reinforce these when we're in the tool. But since this does protect your data, it does not save any of your chat history. So you have to take action if you want to save any of the prompts that you input, any of the generated responses. So if you are having a conversation and you select the new topic button to clear out the conversation, you will lose the data unless you save it. If you close your browser window, or if you just simply leave that chat window open for a while, it will time out. And it will lose that. There is no secret backup in ITS anywhere because remember, we don't have eyes on this data either. So you will have to either copy or export the content in that conversation if you would like to save the output. Okay, so I will model that here in just a moment. And then lastly, right before we jump in here, we need to talk about considerations when we're talking about AI assistant tools, because of course there are many right now, and we are continuing to learn about what those considerations are. Since Copilot does return a probabilistic response to you, it will make mistakes, it will hallucinate, it will provide incorrect data to you. If you think about hallucination in terms of an AI assistant, what that means is it didn't really understand the context of what you were asking. And so it just makes something up that it believes satisfies the requirement of your prompt. And we want to guard against that. So because of those reasons, we need to make sure there's always a human in charge of the output. In general, always be skeptical of what it responds with. You want to make sure that you are always reviewing that output and making sure it is factual, making sure it is written in the way that you intended, making sure that it didn't accidentally change something slightly that could affect the overall quality of that output. Additionally, be mindful of potential biases that can creep into those generated responses because of either the way the prompt was written or the model itself that contains a bias in there. That could be things, there's a ton of biases out there that it could contain, of course. But, for example, gender specific or gender bias could be cultural bias, could even be a domain specific bias. If I ask Copilot what's the best AI assistant tool, it's probably going to say Copilot. Because of that bias, it is Microsoft. And so be mindful of that and ask more questions. Maybe I would say, that's great, Copilot's great, but give me some more options. Tell me about other tools. And if you ask those questions in that continued conversation, it's going to help you to refine that output. The other thing I want to mention about Copilot is if you are working with Copilot in a way in which it is providing information for you, it will cite the sources where it gets that information from on the web. So for example, in the screenshot here, it lists Microsoft and Contoso, and that allows me to go click on that link, and it's going to take me to the exact website that it pulled information from. And so I can look at that source and make sure it's a reliable source, make sure the information it pulled is factual, and just validate the content that it's generating to make sure that I do my due diligence in checking that output. If these tools do well over a number of time, we have the tendency to trust them and copy and paste that output and go. And I would just make sure that you guard against doing that with these tools. We just need to always, always, always be that human in the loop that is looking at that output and making sure it is what we want it to be. All right, so let's jump into the tool here a little bit and do some prompt writing. And just so you know, I've kind of changed accounts on you here because the training account was where I showed you how to log in. I'm on my personal account here, and since I have an elevated license, I have a couple of things that you don't, and I just want to point that out. You will not have a work or web tab here. Everything else should be the same, okay? So I just wanted to point that out because I cannot show you some of these things without logging in the personal account. I'm going to grab a prompt that I have prepared here. And just for example, just so you know, I'm using very simplified prompts in the essence of time so that it can generate it quickly and you can see what the output is. Always, though, when you're writing prompts, remember, the more details, the better response it's going to give you. So really, I just said, please generate an outline for a training on Microsoft Copilot Enterprise. And actually, I put 2 prompts in there. I apologize. We'll use that one in just a second. Very simple prompt, not a lot of details. See how fast that it's moving in that prompt response. Now I am zoomed in here, so I apologize for not being able to see much at once, but it really generated a response very, very quickly about a training on Copilot Enterprise. So notice it put it kind of in an outline format. It can't produce a PowerPoint for me because this software does not have that capability, but it did give me an outline. So if I wanted to go over to PowerPoint and use that outline to create slides, I can certainly do that. Now, obviously, if the more details I include in that prompt, the better it's going to be and the more tailored it's going to be for the specific objectives that I might want to include in this training. Again, I'm taking my own knowledge and putting it in that prompt, and it will amplify that and expand upon it in this area. So I could say, this is great, please make it shorter. So I'm going to iterate on the output that it's given me and continue this conversation by giving it another command. So it says, okay, and so it makes it shorter. And it's asking me, does this look better? So it looks like it gave me 9 points in an outline here, and previously it gave me 9 points. So it doesn't look like it really reduced that a lot. However, each of those key points that it gave, it did reduce the amount of content in those key points. So again, you can just keep going back and forth as much as you want to, and you can have that conversation. Now, one of the limitations here is you're limited to 2,000 characters in the prompt input area here. So I can't write a prompt that's over 2,000 characters. The other thing is when I'm having a conversation and iterating on that prompt with Copilot, I am limited to 30 interactions with Copilot before I have to start a new conversation. When I am continuing a conversation with Copilot, it's remembering all of the points of our previous conversation and taking that into consideration for any subsequent generated responses that it gives me, okay? If I don't want it to remember any of those things, I can simply come down here and click a new topic. Now, remember when I click new topic, it's going to clear out that previous conversation and start from a new conversation. Remember when I click that, I'm going to lose everything unless I save it first. So let's go down to the end of one of these prompts. Notice we have a number of buttons here. I can click like or dislike. So let's say it generated a response that is spot on to what I wanted. These are going to help train that model. So if I click like, for example, whoops, it jumped on me there. Click liked. It gives you the opportunity to add more detail if you want to. You don't have to. If I click cancel, it will still let the model know that it performed correctly. There's just no additional details there. And obviously, if it performed poorly, you want to do a thumbs down. Now, again, it's not sharing your prompt or the generated responses, but it is letting the model know that it performed correctly or incorrectly. So over time, Microsoft says that this will kind of learn what you like and what you don't like and how that applies to the work that you're doing. So you don't have to train this at all. It's still going to learn your preferences as you go along based on your prompts, but you can, if you want to kind of help that process and over time make it more accurate. The other buttons underneath here are copy and export. So if I wanted to save this output, I would simply click the copy button. It puts that on my clipboard, and then I can paste that wherever I want to in another program. Or I could simply click the export button. I can export it to a Word document, a PDF, or a text file. I'll just click Word in ease of time here. It exports it automatically, and then it should give me the option to view here in just a moment. There we go. I can view it now. I don't have to, but I can view it if I want to. Notice if I click view, it opens up Word Online and it's automatically put it in a Word document here for me. The one thing I want you to know is it automatically puts it in your OneDrive. Okay, so it's saved in your OneDrive right now. I can rename it if I want to. It always does a default name of Copilot Answers, and then the date is next, and then it gives it an interaction number at the end. So just in case you want to know what that means, that's irrelevant really, unless you want to save them and classify them like that. Otherwise, I would just rename it to something that makes sense to you. Now that is valuable because let's say I'm working with Copilot and something pops up on Teams and I need to go take a look at that. And there's some emergency I need to attend to in another area of my work. If I simply just click export to Word, I can walk away from the screen and know that my prompt is saved. I don't have to view it. I know I can come back later and it will be right here in my OneDrive that I can look at later. Okay, so it's just a couple of clicks to know that it is saved. The other thing I want to let you know is it doesn't save everything above it. So by saving this, it's only saving this one output. In my humble opinion, this is something that Microsoft needs to develop, and hopefully they are. But notice if I want to save this prompt, I need to copy it by itself. If I want to save the previous output that it gave me, I need to export or copy it as well. And you have to go up and do every single one separately. Okay, so keep that in mind. It always kind of seems like you're getting the last one and it's getting the whole conversation, but it is not. Okay, unfortunately. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click new topic. Remember that clears out that previous conversation. It's not going to remember it. We can start from a new area. One of the things I want to point out here in this next prompt is that you can reference websites. So this prompt says, please read the following information on, and this is a website. I'll show you that website here in just a moment. It's the Teach Iowa Communities. And it looks like it didn't grab the I put the space in the wrong spot there. The HTTPS in here and extract relevant details to fill in a table with headers. And then I gave it the name of those columns that I want it to be. And then I said, please present it in a formatted table. Okay, so I'm going to paste the URL up here so you can see the website. It's a very simple website from the Office of Teaching, Learning, and Technology. Just talks about learning communities that exist out there. It's not too robust, pretty small, but I want to put that information in a table. Okay, so we'll go back to Copilot. I will hit submit here. And it takes just a moment, and notice it's going to, this happened one other time when I was working on a demonstration. Notice it didn't grab everything. It gave me one of the communities of practice in the table like this. And I will say, thank you, but please include the entire web page in the table that you output. All right, I'm going to input that prompt and let's see if it goes back. There we go. So see how that is just one of the quirks of the tool. Most of the time when I input that prompt, it gives me the entire table. Every once in a while, for whatever reason, it just says, nope, I'm just going to give you one. So just know you have to have that mindset of working back and forth with this tool. And when things like that happen, just go, no, that's not what I want. Give me this instead. And notice that it did comply with that, and it gave me all of those different groups on that page in a table. Now, when you do work and ask it to output a table for you, notice up here at the top, it does have an Excel icon, and I can click that. Whoops, if it won't jump on me there. and it will now export it to Excel. So now it just did the same thing we did with the Word document, but it put this in an Excel table. Now, of course, that's not a lot of data, but depending on the type of table that you create, you can automatically have it taken over to Excel. So now you can work with that data in a different way if you want to, okay? You can't necessarily export something down at the bottom from Excel, but if it does generate a table, you can certainly do that. Remember, I can also iterate on this table. I could say, hey, add a column for this and include this information, and it can go out there and get that information as well. Now, notice at the bottom, we said that it will cite sources for you. So here's the sources that it got the information for this table from. Now, I only gave it this website to pull that information from, but my guess is this information is co-listed on some of these other websites because there's an event page. Most likely those communities of practice are listed on there as well. And there's other places where they're probably co-listed as well. So if you had any question about that or wondering why it's pulling from there, just simply click on those websites. It's going to open in a new window, and then you can look through there and determine why it's putting that website in there. And you can validate that source and make sure it is correct. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and click new topic here. And we'll grab another prompt. One of the other ones referencing websites, I want to show you if anybody writes documentation or pulls information from any place. This is a very, very simple prompt here. Please create an FAQ from this website. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit here, and hopefully it will give us an FAQ. Awesome. So notice that is super quick. It went to the website, it pulled different questions that it thought were key points, gave the answer, and now we essentially have an FAQ that we can copy and paste or iterate on or add things to or subtract from, whatever we need to do. It gets me to this first draft situation of the FAQ very, very quickly. Whereas now I can work to either make it better, to change it or edit it or whatever I need to do. But if I were to go to the website and pull this information myself, it would take quite some time, right? So this really, really got me here very, very quickly. And let me just show you what that web page looked like so that you can see what it pulled from here. So this is the AI guidelines and use cases. So we have some information about using AI. And then we also have some drop downs here that do have some FAQs under them of different use cases. So it did pull information from a variety of areas on this web page to help me to get to that first draft stage and writing that FAQ much, much quicker. All right. I think I said that was the last one, but I'm going to do one more before we move on here. I'm going to click new topic, and I'm going to say, please write an email to the team, letting them know about a Copilot training at an all-staff meeting. It's virtual. Team leads provide updates to projects. Let me know if you have additional agenda items. I said also include a thanks for the hard work, good collaboration and teamwork, and include an agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit here. Remember, Copilot knows what a typical email format is. So it's going to put that in the format of an email here. It's got the subject line. It says, hi team. Now notice I didn't tell it what style to write in or what to include, but it did include some human sentiment here that it knows typically is in an email when you're writing it. So it included that. It gave a brief agenda, closing remarks, and then it included some things in here. So I can iterate on that if I want to. I don't have to, but again, it gets me to that first draft stage for an email much quicker. Now, of course, we're not going to use Copilot for tiny little emails that we write back and forth because we can probably write them much quicker than Copilot. Copilot would be better used for emails that are more robust or need to contain a lot more information, or maybe even if they're sensitive and you're trying to think about how best to word things and how to write it. Copilot can help you to think through that and write in different styles to convey the message that you need to convey concisely, accurately, and with the correct amount of human emotion put in there. So use Copilot as your sidekick, right? That's why they call it Copilot, because it's working alongside you to do the work that you need to do on a daily basis. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on really quick to another area of Copilot that we can work in here before we go on. And that is image generation. So Copilot can generate images in addition to text prompts. So you're going to input your prompt in text, just like you do for the text side, but it's going to use the model in the background that's called DALL-E 3 to produce 4 images for you to choose from on that one prompt that you input. And then you do have the opportunity to iterate on that prompt as well. I will caution you though, this is not quite as developed as the text area. The text area has mistakes that it makes as well, but this is a little bit less. It's most likely not going to be able to generate the images that you're thinking it will, but it's getting better and better and better. In the last few months, it is leaps and bounds above what it used to be. And so this is something that is continually getting better. As with text, some considerations here, be mindful of those potential biases. Image generation has trouble with people still. Sometimes it puts their nose in the wrong spot, or it gives them more fingers or toes than they should have, sometimes more legs. So just look at those. It's not going to represent reality. So don't try and recreate your team in Copilot. It won't work. If it does inadvertently reveal personal information, so it does have a content filter in place to prevent us from inadvertently creating harmful images or harmful text. However, based on the prompt and the way the model works, it is possible for some of those things to slip through. So if it does that, just make sure you don't utilize those images or prompts or text, and make sure you train that model with a thumbs down if that does happen. So we'll take a look at that here, and we'll also show how you can add an image to Copilot to work with it that way. So here is my email of the meeting. So I'm going to leave the context of the email that I've written up here so that Copilot takes that into consideration. And I'm going to put a very, very simple prompt in here that just simply says, please create an image of the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Just note that Copilot does recommend that you put at least 6 descriptive words in your prompt to get the best image that is generated here. Notice I didn't really have 6 terms here, so we're going to see what it comes up with. This is the image that comes up when it's thinking, by the way. And here's what it generated simply to my prompt that says, please create an image of a meeting. Now I can click on those and it will open a new tab to make it bigger so you can see it. And then you can kind of look closer at that image to see if it's what you want to represent. So look at all of the people, take a peek at their legs, make sure everything looks normal depending on how you're using it. And then you can arrow through those 4 images to see the different options that it's generated in relation to that prompt that you input. So some of these might look really good. Sometimes I will say it does it less than it used to, but sometimes it would put the same person 14 times around that table. So just be mindful of those things that maybe our minds automatize and we skip over because we're not seeing that. Our mind fixes those things for us. So just make sure and be very purposeful when you're looking at these to see about things that you might need to look at. Also notice too, it does put a little citation over here to the right of every image. If you do use it, simply you could put with it generated with AI, and then it gives the date and the time to note that it is in there. Okay, so if you want to use one of these, just simply right click on it, save image as, and you'll be able to save that image. Otherwise, if you go back to that original prompt area, remember you do have to save that image. If you walk away or close your tab or whatever, those images will be lost. The other thing I want to point out is down here at the bottom, see how there's kind of a coin and it says 99? That is how many boosts that you have. And so what that means is the boost is a rapid image generation. I have 100 because I have an elevated license. Those of you that don't have an elevated license will have 15 per day. And what that means is if you run out of boosts, it's simply going to say you have no boosts left. You just have to wait 24 hours-ish to have that replenish, and then you can make more images. And that's just to make sure that they spread out the server usage, and so we don't overwhelm the servers. And it's kind of like saying, you've generated enough images today, let someone else have a turn, is kind of what that is. But again, we can iterate on that if we want to down here. It's not super good at iteration in images, but it does do some things well. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and click new topic. There are 2 more here I want to just show you really quick. The difference between adding details or not adding details. So this simply says create an image of a dog sitting outside staring at a cupcake. Okay, not a lot of descriptive terms in there. We want it to be a dog, we want it to be outside, and we want them to be looking at a cupcake. That's like what, 3 maybe terms that can describe the environment of the picture that we want. And let's see what it generates here. This image, by the way, does change over time. So if you see a different image while it's generating, just know that that is normal for Copilot. It changes some of those things. Obviously, the more descriptive terms that you do have in a prompt, it takes a little bit longer for that picture to be generated in Copilot. Or if you're presenting, that usually makes it longer as well. So if this happens to you, it says no images were created. That's just because Copilot just kind of had a glitch, right? As with all technology, we know that sometimes happens. What I usually do to fix that, and I don't know if it will do it since I'm demonstrating here, I simply just reload my Copilot. It's kind of like clearing it out. I'm saying to start over on that. And let's see that if it will try it this time. All right, one of the things I've noted too about Copilot is if you do leave the web page open for a while, it does time out, even though it does not give any indication that it has. Even if you're actively working at it, it seems to be sometimes an issue. So make sure that you always just reload or close your browser and reopen it. That seems to clear it out sometimes. There are definitely quirks in these tools. I'm not going to tell you they are perfect by any means, but like I said, they are getting better and better. Okay, looks like it's not going to do that for me right now. I'm going to skip this and come back to it because I really want you to see the difference between those images, but we're going to move on in the essence of time and I will come back. All right, so we're going to move on really quick to Notebook. So remember I told you when you write a prompt, you're limited to 2,000 characters in that prompt. Notebook is simply a way for you to expand that character limit. It functions the exact same that I just showed you with Copilot. The difference is it extends the character limit to 18,000 characters, and then it also changes the interface slightly. So you have a little bit different layout that allows you to iterate and refine those prompts a little bit easier than cutting and pasting and doing those prompts back and forth. It still remembers the previous versions of the prompt if you do iterate on it, and it allows you just to put more complex projects in there, right? Don't forget to save though too. Copilot, again, it works the exact same way as Copilot. It just allows you more characters. So up here in the top, notice you have a Copilot tab. You won't have the Worker Web tab, but you have a Notebook tab. Click on Notebook. It changes the interface to a little bit different here, and then it's going to allow you to input a more complex prompt here. So I'm going to grab a bigger prompt that I have prepared. It's nowhere near 18,000 characters. Oh, and it didn't put it on my clipboard. I apologize. Let me grab it again. All right, copy. There we go. Paste. All right, so the only part of this prompt that I wrote was please summarize the following meeting transcript for me at 8 bullet points. The rest of this is a transcript from a meeting. And just so you know, it's not a real meeting. This is just sample data that I've put in here. So this is an entire meeting minutes that I just raw cut and paste and then just put please summarize this in 8 bullet points. So it's going to do that here down at the bottom. I can move that up just a little bit if I want to. Notice there's 8 bullet points. It went in there, it pulled the 8 that it thought was relevant and put that down to me. So now I can iterate on this if I want to. Let's say instead of 8 bullet points, I just want 3 out of that whole meeting. I'm in a hurry. I just want to see what the main points were. And it puts it down to 3. Now be mindful, it can still hallucinate or give incorrect information. So you should know if this is a meeting that you've gone to regularly, if these are correct-ish or not, whether it matters at that time or not. You'll likely know when to review very, very carefully and check sources and when not to, depending on how you're using Copilot and in what context you're using Copilot. Now, just for the example's sake here, let's say if you have a meeting and you have the transcript, you could also say, what are the action items that came as a result of this meeting? What were the decisions that were made? Who were the stakeholders involved in this meeting? And you can have Copilot pull out that information for you. So if you've missed it, you can quickly catch up on what happened, what was the result of the meeting. You can even say, was I mentioned in the meeting, and put your name down, and it can pull out that information as well to help you get through that a lot easier. Again, you can iterate on it very quickly here at the top. Make sure at the bottom, though, there's where you can train the data, and there's where also you can copy and export if you need to. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to Copilot here. One of the things I just realized I neglected to show you was adding an image to Copilot. So really quick here in the prompt input area, if you hover over the icons, there's an add an image and add a file. So you can add a file if you want to interact with Copilot in that way. So you can add a document, you can add a PowerPoint, you can add an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can say, summarize this spreadsheet for me, or give me the insights. Now, I won't say that it's really robust. It usually can handle around 20 pages, but that's give or take, and it depends on the complexity of the data. So don't expect that to be super robust at being able to give you that answer that you want, but it can certainly interact very well with those uploaded documents. If I add an image here, let me grab one from my device. Let's go to desktop. I have an image that Copilot itself generated. It's a broken image. It might not be working here. It looks like my computer is having fun interacting today. Let me see if it'll work here. The image is an image of a Copilot. Yeah, it's not going to do it. I apologize. It looks like it's having trouble with images on my computer today. Hopefully that'll fix and we can go back to that. But what it's going to do is if I had a screenshot of something, for example, let's say I have a graph, I can say, please tell me what this graph represents. And it will give you a rundown of what's in that graph, what the data is saying, and it can extract that text from that image. So you can interact with those images in any way that you might need to better understand them, or simply just to take the text from them, right? Sometimes we have an image and we want to just get that text instead of retyping it, and we can have Copilot extract that text for us. All right, I'm sorry that the images are not working well today. That happens usually when I'm demonstrating. So we will come back to that. The next thing I want to talk to you about is using Copilot in Edge. So Copilot, if you use the Microsoft Web or Edge browser, I'm not sure how many do. I'm still getting used to using Edge because I'm usually using Chrome, but Copilot is integrated with Edge. It's built right in there, as you can open in a panel, as you'll see here in just a moment. It functions almost the same as the Copilot that I just told you. The additional things that you can do, though, is it allows you to analyze web pages that you have visible. And if you have a PDF that's saved locally, you can also interact with that PDF as well. In addition to that, there is a Compose tab that has a number of attributes that you can select in order to simply generate new content. So if you need a quick paragraph or description or something like that, it's just a quick content generation tool that's built right in. So I'm going to exit out here. I'm going to pull up Edge here on my computer. I'm just at the Iowa homepage here. If you look on the top right-hand side of your Edge browser, there is an icon here that is kind of blue and green, looks kind of like a ribbon. That's Copilot. So if you click on that, it opens a Copilot panel, and I can make this bigger if I want to. Here in the middle, it says sign in. If you don't see that green shield, remember, you do need to sign in with Copilot to get that data protection that you need. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in here. I just wanted you to see the process here just because sometimes this can be confusion with all the things that it asks you to sign in with. This one is going to ask for your Hawk ID. All right, and then obviously if you have Duo, it's going to ask you for that. A lot of times it will also auto sign you in, depending on what else you're signed into. And if you use Edge regularly, you may not have to go through this process because it will automatically log you in. Now that I've gone through all of those steps, I've logged in for a while now, right? So if I close out of Edge and come in tomorrow, I don't have to go through that. It's going to leave me signed in. And I don't have to go through all of that. Notice it's the exact same. Let me go to the website. Remember, you don't have the work or web tab. It's the exact same as the Copilot that we just saw, and it functions the exact same way. So I'm not going to go over all of those things. There's my green shield at the top that I can see that I have that data protection. The only other thing I want to tell you is now I can interact with a web page. So if I have the University of Iowa homepage up in view here, now I can say, please summarize this web page for me. All right, so I didn't give it a lot of context there. Remember, I'm writing simple prompts, but it reviewed the web page and it pulled out a few bullet points here that it thinks are pertinent for me to look at on this web page. So think about if you have a web page, you're trying to figure out if you want to spend more time or if it has the information that you're looking for, you can ask Copilot to kind of find that for you so you don't have to spend your time doing it. Notice down here under reference, it says just uiowa.edu because I told it to reference this web page. If it went outside of there, it would list more sources here that I could go to. Or if I want to expand that, I can click this button down here that says answer from the web instead. So then it's going to broaden that search and give me more information about the University of Iowa that is not contained just on this web page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click new topic. Before I do that, don't forget you also have to export or save those prompts and output if you want to keep them. And you can also train that model if you want to. I'm going to click new topic. I am also going to open up a PDF. So the PDFs, by the way, do have to be saved locally. So if you have to log in to get to the PDF, Copilot will not be able to interact with it. It has to be saved. Notice I pulled this one off of my desktop. If it was in your downloads folder, things like that would be just fine, but it cannot go through that authenticated piece. So if you have to log in, it won't be able to get to it. And it does have to be a PDF right now. Okay, so this is something that it can't do a document yet. It can just do a PDF. So this is a PDF that's a scholarly article written by Roy P. on distributed cognition. It's about 23 pages, which is kind of, they say they can go more right now or bigger to interact with, but I found that's not quite there yet. So I would recommend staying around 20 pages if you're going to interact with something. I'm simply going to say, please tell me what affordances are from this document. Okay, very simple prompt. I should give it more context to get a better response, but I'm just being very simple to show this here. Notice it says it's referring to the perceived and actual properties of an object, and then it gives us citations after each of these sentences. So if I click on that citation, it takes me to the exact spot in that document where it got that information from. So it allows you to work with that PDF and ask questions. You can simplify things. Maybe this is very hard for me to understand, and I could say, could you please simplify this paragraph? And tell me as a person who has never experienced this before, and it will simplify that language so that I can better understand that paragraph, or I can even extract text from this if I want to. But again, notice that I can have that conversation about what an affordance is. I could even ask more information and iterate on that if I want to. All right. I am going to go ahead and click new topic here, and up here in the top, notice at the very top left, it says chat and compose. Chat is where we're at right now. So when you click on chat, it doesn't go anywhere because that's the Copilot pane that you see right now. That is the chat interface with the AI assistant. If we were to click on the compose button, compose brings up that content generator that I told you about that just allows you to pick some attributes to quickly generate some context here. So I'm going to say, please describe a Copilot training in one paragraph. One thing I want to just really quick note here that I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I always say please. I know that seems silly. It's not to appease the AI overlords or anything like that, but it has been statistically shown that if you use polite language with the AI, that it responds better. And that's just because of the way the algorithm is trained and the model is set up, that you are signifying that you want to have a professional level conversation that is polite with that AI. And so it's going to mimic that response back to you and provide a more robust response because it is signaling that professional level of communication between the two. So I know that's silly, but I always say please and thank you. And it seems to work well. So just wanted to point that out to you. So I'm going to say, please describe a Copilot training in one paragraph. Let's see how funny it can get. I think it's about dad level joke funny in there. I'm going to leave it a paragraph because I told it to write a paragraph. I'm going to say short, just in the essence of time. And I'll go ahead and say generate draft here. And again, these are usually, this is more for something that if you want to generate something that's smaller, I wouldn't generate a whole document in here. I would do that with the other interface of Copilot. So notice it kind of says Copilot is like teaching a parrot to code. It's a quirky, fun-filled adventure. So it's trying to be funny and lighthearted and whimsical in its response there. But it just wanted to model for you how you can get a quick paragraph that then you can iterate on with Copilot if you want to and choose those attributes as a different way of creating content. Down here at the bottom, just so you know, add to site is not working yet. That is something that is in future development, that you would be able to interact with a site in this area. All right, so at the top here, remember we have chat and we have compose. If you put your cursor along to the right-hand side here, if you ever have trouble with Copilot and you need to reload it, this is the refresh button on Edge that you should use. That reloads Copilot for you. If you use the refresh button on the browser, it doesn't necessarily refresh Copilot. So that's what you should use. Also, the three dots here, notice there is a notebook. This is a very recent addition to Copilot in Edge. You can use Notebook and it expands that character limit to 18,000. So now think about how you might be able to interact with this PDF by using 18,000 characters instead of just the 2,000 that I was limited to. So it allows you to work with documents that you already have and go back and forth with them and do whatever you need to do to accomplish your work tasks. All right, I am closing Copilot there. We're going to go back to the presentation here, and actually let me make this bigger. There we go. We're going to go move on to potential future tools. So we're moving away from Copilot right now, Copilot Enterprise that I just showed you. We're going to move on to talking about Copilot 365. So just so you know, we usually talk about the copilot.microsoft.com that you just saw as Copilot Enterprise. This one that is very similarly named, thank you, Microsoft, we call Copilot 365. Copilot 365 is currently in test flight stage. What that means is it's in pilot. We are piloting the software. We didn't want to call it Copilot Pilot because that just doesn't sound good. We have about 165 people in the pilot right now, and we are going to be expanding that pilot to be around 1,000 people by next July. We are currently working on plans as to how we're going to get different users. We want to make sure and test this very systematically. So we have people in different levels of positions, different types of positions, and that perform different work so we can see which positions it's most valuable with. Just as a side note, if you're interested in looking into participating in that, send me an email. I'll make sure you have my contact information. I cannot guarantee everyone will be able to participate, but I will do the best that I can as we're looking at those that want to participate. It is no cost during the pilot. However, at the end of July through that fall of next year, there will be a cost associated with that we are working on right now with Microsoft, okay? The difference of this tool between the Copilot I just showed you is that this is integrated with your data. So it's integrated with your Outlook, your Microsoft Teams, your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, any data that you have, OneDrive, SharePoint, it can pull things from there to assist you in your daily work tasks. So for example, if you wanted to get an update on a project, I can say, what's the update on project for Copilot training or the Copilot test flight? And it will look in all of my team's chats, all of the teams I'm a part of, my emails, the documents that I have, the documents that are shared with me, and it's going to pull in anything that is remotely related to that and that is recent so that it can give me a rundown of where we're at on those projects. I'll show you that here in just a second. It does also allow you to draft with Copilot right in the application. You don't have to go outside and go to a web browser. You can do that right inside the application as well. If you have a Teams recorded meeting, it can capture automatic meeting notes for you. And you can also pull up Copilot during the meeting and ask questions about the meeting that's going on, as long as it's recorded. That is great because, as you know, when we're working, sometimes something happens and we come back and we're like, oh, wait, what did that person say? You can now just ask Copilot. What did Tracy say about that? And Copilot will tell me. Nobody else sees that conversation, by the way, except for you and Copilot. So that is also a nice enhancement as well, especially if you don't understand something that's going on in the meeting. If you don't know who someone is in the meeting, you can ask Copilot those things and Copilot will tell you. The good thing about all of that is that it maintains the current permission structure. So when you are interacting with Copilot 365, it's not going to pull data from someone else on their private projects or their private documents that they have. It's only going to pull information from that of which you already have permission to have. So if someone has shared a document with you, it can access that and pull that information in for you. If you have a document, but you've not shared it with anyone, it's not going to have anybody else pulling that information in for them. It maintains those current permission structures for Copilot. All right, so let me grab one of the instances of Copilot. I'm not going to be able to show you everything about Copilot at all. This is just a small little preview of what Copilot 365 can do. And it looks like I'm going to have to exit out here. This is my desktop application for Microsoft Teams. This is one of the many places that Copilot 365 is integrated with. And you'll notice it's one of my choices on the left here, the left navigation to pull this up. Notice it's giving me some prompt suggestions here. So it's going to some of the things that I've recently done. So it's saying, do you want to draft email notes for this Copilot orientation you did? Or do you want a bulleted list of key points from the chatbot business case you're working on? It suggests those because it knows I have recently been in those documents or have attended those meetings. Now, I can do that if I want to, but I don't have to, of course, because I can come down here and write my own prompt. So let's say, and I'm going to use my supervisor, Tracy Scott, for this, and he knows I always use him as an example, so he's fine with that. But let's say I say, what are my upcoming meetings with? And the cool thing about this version of Copilot is that if I use the /, I am allowed to reference people, specific files that I have access to, meetings that I'm a part of, and any recent emails. So let's say I want to choose Tracy here. So what are my upcoming meetings with Tracy? It knows to go out and look for any meetings that I have currently with my supervisor, Tracy. And notice it's coming up with all of the meetings that I have coming up. And it is also telling me some other people that are involved in some of the meetings, and it has citations. So by clicking on the citations, it's going to take me right to that meeting invite so I can look at what's there. I can look at any details that's there. Also, I can click on these and go to anything. Notice if I hover over the one-to-one that we have this afternoon, I can click Help Me Prepare. And Help Me Prepare is going to pull in anything that I've recently done remotely connected to Tracy, and it's going to run me down on all of those, any emails, any recent chats he and I have had, anything like that. So it kind of preps me for that meeting really quick. Okay, so that is a nice way to help me with my day. I've heard that this is one of the most valued features of Copilot 365, along with the meeting insights that you get in those Teams meetings. Also here, it does save your prompts. Okay, so this is kind of a nice feature in this area. It's going to save those previous prompts. So if I regularly want to go in and see what my upcoming meetings with Tracy are that I can just click on that and it will run that prompt for me. So that's kind of one of the many affordances. All right, that is in Teams. The only other one I want to show you, for example, this is my my PowerPoint online. Since Copilot 365 is integrated into those applications, notice up here, I have a Copilot icon in the top right-hand side. If I click on Copilot, it allows me to open up a Copilot pane, and now I can work on this presentation with Copilot if I want to. So I could say, give me feedback on this slide. Now, hopefully it's not too brutal. It's going to look at this and it's going to say, here's what it is. That's a lot of feedback very, very quickly. All right, so overall feedback. So it's giving me clarity. It's saying the slide is clear and well organized. Visuals, consider adding more visuals because it's just text, right? It's talking about potentially having consistency in formatting, and then adding an interactive element so you're all just not sitting there doing a sit and get, right? So if I could involve you somehow in this slide, it's going to make you understand better and participate better and just be more engaged in the knowledge that I'm sharing on this slide as well. So that's one of the many ways. I could say add a slide with this information. I could simply just say create a presentation with Copilot training and it will do that for me, right? It gets me to that first draft stage much quicker than I could do it. And then I am at the iteration stage very, very, very quickly, right? So that is kind of just a very, very quick preview of potential future tool in Copilot 365. And what I want to do is I'll make sure that we have this presentation to send out to you all after the training so that you have these resources. Some of these are the websites I referenced in some of my examples, but we do have conversations going on about AI, different ways to use it, some different guidelines for different types of use with AI. And those are on these links at the top. I encourage, if you ever have questions about Copilot or any AI tools, please reach out to me. You can email me, you can ping me on Teams. I'm always on Teams. Happy to engage with you in any way. If you have something that you think that would work well, maybe a different AI tool that you're looking at, or if you have a specific issue that you think AI might be able to help you with, I would love to talk to you. I'm collaborating with many departments now in looking at different tools and how we might be able to partner to either pilot those tools or maybe solve some issues that exist with some AI that works well for that need. But I'm happy to talk with anyone that might have any conversations or questions in that manner. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. You can unmute, you can raise your hand, whatever works best for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on what I've covered today.